Joining us right now is House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy. He's going to be speaking at the National Association of Manufacturers Conference on new business optimism later today, but we get to speak with him first. And Leader, thank you for being with us today.
Well, thanks for having me on today. Appreciate it.
We have been trying to figure out what tax reform, what this package is going to look like, and I realize you all are doing the same thing right now, but do you think in the end it's going to look more like a series of tax cuts or more like a tax reform that really broadly changes how we look at taxes in the United States?
Well, part of that has to deal with when health care gets done. If health care moves the end of next month, then you have repealed $1 trillion worth of taxes there. So you're actually starting with a corporate rate down at 25 to start out with, and you can broaden the amount of tax reform you can get done. So we're working through that right now. We'll go into tax next, and we'll do as much as possible because growth will actually solve the majority of our problems that we're headed into in the next decade.
Gary Cohn laid out a timeline yesterday where he said expect a package that's pretty fully fleshed out within the first 2 weeks of September. Does that sound like the same timeline you're working on?
Very much so. We're learning from walking through the health care work that we did that get everybody together early on, be able to roll that out right after we're done with health care, and for everyone to be able to see it and have it work faster than we have in the past. I think you'll find more people together in this. I think America is a desire to be competitive. We've waited too long for tax reform. I think on both sides of the aisle they talked about this. So I'm looking forward to actually bringing growth back to America.
We spoke with Congressman Jim Jordan earlier. He's a Republican and in the Freedom Caucus. He said that he doesn't like the border adjustment tax. He doesn't think it's something that's going to get passed, that it's basically one guy who really likes it, but that one guy is really important in the House, and that's Paul Ryan. What do you think about the border adjustment tax? Is it dead?
Well, I think from the standpoint moving forward, if we're making policy in the world of politics, and that's a challenge, we can change that, but it won't stop changing tax reform overall. So that's something we're working through right now.
Leader, what do you think about the idea of local and state taxes being able to be deductible from your federal income tax? That's been a huge issue between southern states, northern states, particularly northeastern states, where it really would make a big difference for those heavily taxed states. What do you think happens with that situation?
Well, if we're going to look and start with the premise that this tax code is going to be fair and simple, you got to look at it as an entirely. Because if you're just taking what some people would say a benefit to California to continue to raise taxes, or New York, you're having other states and other Americans pay for that. Then you're not going to get as much tax reform you desire. The rates are not going to be low enough. So if you look at it the entirety, I think that is an unfairness for the rest of the states as you move forward.
It's probably fair, but there are probably a lot of unfair issues in the tax code. Do you have the votes to push that through? Because there are Republicans in those states like New York, Connecticut, and California too.
There are, but if you're going to just look at one specific element when you judge whether you're going to vote for a tax bill, I think that's the wrong approach. You got to look at the entire tax bill. Is it going to make us more competitive around the world? Is it going to lower the rate overall? So you want to look at the overall process of where you're going forward, and I think, yes, there will be enough votes.
What are the big issues with health care? I realize that's in the Senate right now. They have talked about a very different package, though, than what the House passed. If the Senate comes up with the most likely bill to pass, which would probably be something that continues to extend Medicare for a number of states for a longer period of time, is that something that you will be able to reconcile once you get to conference?
Well, one thing I say is let the Senate do the work. We've done our work, and I think at the end of the day, we will come together with a final package that actually repeals the Obamacare. But you've got to think of this. If you want to keep what's currently out there, then you have to look at those 94 counties in Iowa out of 99 that have no health care. You got to go to those Americans in Tennessee of the 16 counties that have no health care. Or you've got to talk about all the individuals across America that had their premiums doubled. Or what do you talk about those 18 co-ops out of 23 that have collapsed? And when you really look at the data, more people took the penalty and the waiver, 19 million, than signed up for Obamacare. So you can't continue down the current path of where we are. Because of that, I know we'll come to an agreement together to solve this problem, to actually lower premiums, give people greater choice and selection of where their health care goes.
I think you would agree that there's a lot of work to be done for all of Congress this particular year. Are you committed, if need be, to work through the August recess, as Speaker Ryan has indicated he would be willing to do?
Look, the first thing I would say is my father always told me, if you plan for failure that you got to do something else, you're going to end up with that. What I'm trying to do is get everything done by July. If we come to that date and we're not there yet, yes, we'll gladly look at that. But let's not start pushing things back. One thing I know about government, if you push the deadline back, then that's the only time they'll start to work. We've got a deadline now. Let's do our work now, and we'll discuss that later.
Just looking at your district, you know, we had a little time, and I can't believe
it's a great district.
I can't believe you get elected out there in California, but now I look where you are, and now I understand it. So in your district, Trump won 58. There was a district in that's unbelievable. There was a district in California where Trump won 58%.
Yes. And my district's a great district. My
well,
district,
yeah, but in California, you're heading to single payer out there. I mean, you may secede. You may, you may build a big dome like in the Simpsons movie for CO2 or something. I mean, California's lost their mind, haven't they?
They have. You watch, the Democrats have taken over California in the State House. What they do,
how's that going?
They raised, not well, because they gave you the highest state tax. They just raised the gasoline tax, 12 cents. They raised the license tax. The last time we had a governor that took this approach, we recalled him. I think you're going to find that. There's a recall movement for a state senator in there. You know, absolute power corrupts absolutely, and that's what I see happening in California.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking about that election yesterday, which again, you know, we've talked about.
That was a big election.
No, it wasn't. Now I've been told by everyone that it was the result everybody knew was going to happen, and it was way too optimistic to think that Democrats could ever take Georgia, and they never really thought seriously that they could. So it's not really much of a win for Republicans. You got the wrong narrative now. But turn on the TV.
Listen. The most money ever spent.
Right.
The ideal district that the Democrats have laid out of how they're going to retake the majority here, and they lost. You got to think about it. They have spent more than $30 million. They used the progressive movement of where they're going. This is the Bernie Sanders, the Nancy Pelosi philosophy, and it failed. Remember the difference when you saw a majority happening before? We had Massachusetts, where unfortunately Ted Kennedy had passed away. No Republican had won in Congress there on a federal level, and Scott Brown won overwhelmingly.
Right.
That was a real indication of what the Democrats were doing was wrong. They thought they had the same thing here. We've gone through 4 special elections, and every time the Democrats come back after they lose and talk about how much they improved by the money they put in and how they're getting so much closer. Yeah. This was the ideal campaign and also the ideal candidate and the ideal seat, that what they said they needed to win the majority, and they failed.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to stir things up there. I should have not. Kellyanne Conway said she's laughing her ass off. Laughing her ass off.
I'll let that stay right there.
Laughing her ass off. Pretty good line, Majority Leader. All right, we'll see you. And we asked about Scalise earlier. He tweeted, so.
He's doing better.
Fingers crossed.
He's doing much better, yes.
Fantastic. Prayers are working. Anyway, thank you.
All right, take care.